I see Interchain Conversations has brought an audience this morning.
Yes, it did. Well, good thing we have a lot of good news for them.
All right, Jack has made it. Well, now let's get the party started, right?
Yes, we have a few more people to let in.
Oh, I'm not seeing those notifications. I think you're the host, Justin. So if you
Yes,
want me to let
yes.
people,
Yeah, so I'm just going to do the host, and there's just going to be two of you, Deborah. So we finally have the clone of you we really needed the whole time. Um,
Bravo.
two of me may not be a good thing.
I beg to disagree.
Buckle up.
Okay, let's see. Um, so let's give everybody another 60 seconds and wait till an even 11:05 to get started. Um, But yeah, there's actually a lot of Peggy news this week. Specifically, we are finally done with the Stargate upgrade. So that's going to be celebration. We'll be talking a little bit about what that took to get done, and sort of where things are going from here, as well as a little bit about the schedule for this week's testnet, which will be this Friday, right, Deborah?
Yep, this Friday.
Okay, cool. With the agenda out of the way, and it looks like the rate of people coming in has slowed down some. So let's get this party started. Um, First and foremost, last night we completed our 93 Comet and 1 month long Odyssey to upgrade the Peggy module to Stargate, and we are now finally Stargate ready, which is great. And it opens up a lot for us to do, and it opens up all the things that we need to do to really finish Peggy, um, which includes, but is not limited to, um, we need to delegate address. So let's see. We need to delegate addresses. Right now, you need to use the like validators key. So that needs to happen. We need a little bit better testing of batches, something that actually fills a batch with 100 transactions in the test case. Um, Validator set updates still are not triggered. They're just time based, so I would like to do that based off of how much the power changes on the Cosmos side. Um, there are a few security spot checks that need to be done, slashing, and then just Genesis state. Um, Once we have these things done and write a few more test cases, Peggy will be production ready. So there's not a huge amount of code between us and there. And the Stargate upgrade was long and somewhat arduous, but thanks to everybody's hard work, we have managed to get it done. Uh, and right now we are still running on legacy Go Amino transactions, um, which works okay, but it's something I'm looking forward to getting out of the way. So, yeah, I think that covers most everything, just like context for where we are now, um, and the state of what needs to get done at a sort of very technical level. Um, but let's cover a little bit more of what needs to of like what Peggy can do right now. So if you were to download Peggy right now, you could send transactions from Ethereum to Cosmos and back effectively. And you could do this again and again for arbitrary ERC20 tokens. And your cost to do so would be quite low. We are looking at, we have achieved the efficiency goals we set out to achieve with our design. Um, and essentially, if you can't afford to use Peggy, you can't afford to use Ethereum because the cost of sending funds from Ethereum to Cosmos is free, and sending funds from Cosmos to Ethereum will cost you uh, only a couple of percent in overhead. So we're talking maybe 5% of your ERC20 transaction cost is going to be the Peggy bridge, provided that there are enough transactions to distribute that cost over. So there may be some latency, but not a lot of additional cost. Um,
Yeah, I think latency is going to be the big one. We're going to see
yeah.
how that works out, especially on smaller tokens that nobody uses. It might take a long time for there to be enough built up to fill a batch and get submitted.
Yeah, so that will be the ultimate issue. Let's say you're on uncommon token. So it's a very uncommon token. Nobody really uses it. And you have it on Cosmos and you say you want to send it to Ethereum. So last Saturday, batches would cost you about so so on Saturday, a batch would cost you about $1 in addition to the cost of your ERC20 transfer, which is on the order of 20 to 40 cents, with that same gas price, which is 28 GWay. So you could just pay for the entire batch yourself very reasonably. Of course, this morning gas prices are 4 times higher, and you would be looking spending $4 to push the batch through yourself. And yeah, that is something to consider. If you're using a very active token like DAI, or something that is being moved back and forth a lot to and from this particular chain, you could fill up a batch with up to 100 transactions. And in that case, you're not going to be paying very much more than just the base cost of sending your ERC20 transaction. Yeah, the whole exchange rate problem is still interesting. Jack, I wanted to hear your comments about implementing slashing. If you have any thoughts right now.
Yeah, so the Cosmos SDK does make this relatively easy. We've done some initial conversations on sort of where we want those slashing conditions to be put. If these orchestrators who are submitting these Ethereum events to the Peggy chain, i.e. this sort of Ethereum oracle that we've built, if they miss too many events that other consensus members have submitted, then we're going to slash those folks and jail them. We'll be working on that implementation over the next couple of weeks, and should have it ready to go around the first of the year for a major testnet.
Yeah, so I think the major slashing conditions we are considering right now are focused around, obviously you want to slash people for trying to steal funds from the bridge. Due to the design of our oracle, you don't really need to slash people for being for like lying about what is happening on Ethereum, but we probably should. And due to the design of Peggy, lying about what is happening on Ethereum and actually trying to steal funds from the bridge are completely different things. So if you want to steal funds from the bridge, you need to hold on to your voting power in the Peggy Ethereum contract bridge state for long enough, or you need to have more than 66% of the power as determined by the Ethereum bridge, by the Peggy Ethereum contract, and you want to be able to do that without still being staked as a validator on the Cosmos side, so that you can't be slashed. So most of the slashing conditions we're thinking about revolve around making sure that you can't finish unstaking without signing over a new validator set. Because as long as that condition is true, there is no way to steal funds from the bridge that doesn't involve you losing your stake. Now, we can't actually stop people from stealing funds from the bridge because all the validators together have enough voting power to move things in the bridge. That's just the design consideration, in the same way that 66% of Cosmos validators have the ability to issue new tokens. Rowland, let's see. Basic question on batching costs. Justin referred to gas price volatility affecting batch prices. These are gas prices on Ethereum, correct? Is there any volatility in costs driven by activity on Cosmos? No, Jahan is right, not currently, because yes, high costs on the Cosmos chain will not affect getting batches across, except in as much as so the validators are running a process that sends messages to sign Ethereum to do Ethereum signatures and such. And if that didn't have enough money in its Cosmos account to pay for transactions, then yes, that would be a problem. But due to a quirk of the way the memory pool is currently implemented on Cosmos, due to a quirk of the way Cosmos is working right now, it's how should I put it? Cosmos doesn't have a really great gas system at the moment, and there's no real like minimum threshold, and there also are not full blocks that would prevent a validator from including your transaction. So even if you put in a transaction with no fee, or an impossibly low fee, it will get through relatively quickly on any current Cosmos chain. So the whole story about gas costs on Cosmos is not yet played out because there is no Cosmos chain active enough to need gas in any real sense.
We can do whatever we want because basically, I mean, we could if we needed to, we could write the Cosmos code so that it doesn't even charge gas for
Yes, we could make our
bridge-related
transactions free. Yeah.
So.
We just haven't needed to because, like I was, because we the whole Cosmos ecosystem is a little hasn't had to deal with fully saturated transactions on a fully saturated train for long enough for the gas ecosystem to really mature. But if that were to happen and become a problem, we would just go and exempt the Peggy module from gas costs and call it a day. It's just not something we've done yet.
Any functionality on Cosmos is right now, unless we're talking about Cosmosm, but anything that's written Cosmos SDK has been put in there by the development team of that particular blockchain, and so they can decide how much it should cost, and we might do some So it's not as important as Ethereum. It's not really important unless you have people uploading arbitrary logic like if they're using Cosmosm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the main point of the entire bridge design is to try and keep the cost of doing anything on Ethereum to a reasonable level, because right now we have I guess 100 GWay gas prices on Ethereum would not be reasonable in the year ago sense, but they are reasonable in the recent time frame sense, and we want to keep Peggy viable to operate as long as it's still viable to use Ethereum, which I think we've succeeded at. Knock on wood and all that. But the design is very efficient, and it lets us do a lot. The only downside, as Jahan mentioned, is the latency of small volume batches. If you have high volume, you don't have problems.
It's an interesting thing. I mean, maybe we'll revisit it at some future point, but you really have to have the Cosmos chain knowing what the exchange rate is between Ethereum gas and any given ERC20 token to be able to do mixed batches of lots of different tokens, because you have to be able to decide what the fee is going to be. And so that'll be really useful, but it also involves like a lot of really fuzzy knowledge they have to get from some oracles or something like that. And we wanted for this iteration of Peggy something very solid and simple. So that's why we didn't do it.
Yeah, it's actually... So yeah, actually that brings up something that we should note for everybody. That is, if you're going to run a relayer for a Peggy chain, you will be paid in the token people are bridging. So for example, if you relay a batch of DAI transactions, you're going to get paid in DAI. If you relay a batch of Uni transactions, you're going to get paid in Uni. And then you, as the relayer, your relayer application is going to look at Uniswap or some price oracle and say, like, that's worth it. Relay the batch, and then perhaps liquidate the funds, perhaps keep the funds, because remember, you're paying transaction fees in ETH, even though you're getting paid in something else. Okay, what happens if only one person wants to transfer 20 DAI from the pegged zone back to Ethereum? Will it not go through because there aren't enough transactions? So what happens when somebody wants to send a transaction is that it goes into the Peggy memory pool. So there's a pool of transactions on the chain that are waiting to be put into the next block. if there is not enough activity and the person did not include a high enough fee to pay for the entire batch themselves, then then their transaction will wait. Um, Now, I'm going to give an example of what a really smart relayer could do, and right now relayers are not this smart, but they can be conceivably. Um, so somebody, let's say Elliot for the sake of our example, Elliot locks up his funds to send over to Ethereum. And he has decided to pay a fee of $1, and batches right now cost $4. So since he's the only person in the pool, nobody is willing to relay this batch, and it waits. Now, then sometime at 4 a.m. this morning or tomorrow morning, gas prices have gone down. It now only costs 78 cents to relay this batch, and Elliot's fee is $1. So what happens is that a particularly smart relayer would say, "Hey, please make me a batch." They would send a create batch message. The Peggy module on the Cosmos chain would make the batch, and then that relayer would go and submit the batch, and it would execute, and they would make their 28 cents in fees. No, 32 cents. So that would be a win for them. And this is generally how batches are going to work, is that you're going to lock up your funds and you're going to have to wait for the total sum of the transactions in the memory pool to be worth sending that transaction to Ethereum. Now, this is something that we can do, but we haven't implemented, is that as long as your transaction is in the memory pool and not yet actually in a batch, you can theoretically just withdraw it at any time. There's no double spend risk there because it's not yet in a batch that could theoretically be signed and sent to Ethereum. So if you decide that it's been too long and nobody's made a batch because it wouldn't be profitable, you could unlock your funds and go back to using them on Cosmos. That's not something we've implemented yet, but that's something we can implement.
Also, the maximum, the batch size is right now hard coded at 100. So I think before we have a batch that can have one really big high fee transaction in it, like your example, we'd have to implement the shifting batch sizes, which is something that's like an issue right now, but we haven't worked on, right?
The maximum batch size is 100. You can definitely make a one transaction batch. Or am I misunderstanding your statement?
No, I have to go review the code. I thought there was some reason you couldn't do that, but you might be right. Yeah.
Well, that is the test case we have running right now. So if we can't do that, then I'm very confused. So yeah, I think that's okay. We are hard coded at 100. We could maybe go higher, but we're gonna have to see some really high volume chain before that's worth considering.
It's if there's another batch that's got like more transactions in it, but it's not profitable because it also costs more gas to submit that whole thing, then you wouldn't be able to make a new batch, right? With only one transaction.
You would still be able to make a new Yes, you would still be able to make a new batch with only one transaction. And when you submitted that batch, it should unlock the transactions in the previous batch. But we're getting into the batch use free logic, which is supposed to be implemented, but I need to go and write a solid test for. And that is one of the things I'm going to try and tackle over the next week, is that right now we have this happy path test, and you wrote that nice double deposit test, Jahan. But I'm going to try and break this out into happy path tests and then exception case tests, like a test with where one validator isn't signing anything, a test where people are submitting events out of order, that sort of stuff, so that we can get this all properly automatically tested. What happens? Okay, another question from Elliot. What happens if there is a reorg or uncle on the Ethereum side, and a TX that was included in a block now goes back into the mempool, and the user manages to cancel a transaction? Well, so I think there's a couple of questions here. First of all, what happens if there's a reorg or an uncle on Ethereum? Nothing on Ethereum occurs First of all, for Oracle, so if you're trying to deposit some tokens from Ethereum to Cosmos, there is a 50 block delay before you will be issued the tokens on Cosmos.
It's not necessarily 50, but that's just what we
But
say right now.
yes,
We have to
yes,
figure out
yes.
what it will be.
Yes, 50 is some arbitrary amount, but the point is that we're picking a very high value. If you have an Ethereum chain reorg of 50 blocks, something seriously funky. Normally they're only a couple, so it's unlikely to be. It's going to be very difficult to have a situation where you manage to keep your tokens on Ethereum and mint tokens on Cosmos, as it would require effectively a fork of Ethereum to actively be happening at that time. And the other situation is that what happens if there's a reorg or an uncle on Ethereum when you're trying to submit a transaction batch? And the answer is that you cannot. So once again, we don't currently have this implemented, but if your tokens were in the mempool waiting to be sent over to Ethereum, you could retrieve them when they were in the memory pool. Once they're in a transaction batch, you could no longer retrieve them. Because once that transaction batch exists, it could be signed and submitted. But theoretically, that transaction batch could be sitting around for an arbitrary amount of time, and you would not be able to withdraw your funds at that time. So there is no way it is safe to withdraw funds from the mempool, because once a batch is created, you are no longer allowed to withdraw your funds. And from the second that batch is created, it is theoretically possible for it to be submitted to Ethereum. There's no, how should I put it? It's atomic, so there's no race condition here. If you try and withdraw your funds from the mempool after it's in a batch, it's not going to work. If you manage to withdraw your funds into the mempool and later in that same block a batch is created, that batch won't be created with your transaction. So 100% safe.
We should probably test a lot of different scenarios with Ethereum funkiness, though.
Yeah, Ethereum
hard to
funkiness makes me
predict.
more nervous. I'm very confident
It's kind of like the thing with
in the batch system.
with Peggy though is like it's supposed to be as secure as both the chains that it's bridging, and so
Mhm.
if something goes like so wrong with Ethereum that people's account balances are getting messed up and stuff, then it's also um, that's maybe outside of the scope of Peggy to correct something like that. If Ethereum's completely screwed up. Same thing on the Cosmos side. If the Cosmos chain's totally taken over, Peggy will be taken over as well. But it's like Peggy is as secure as both the chains that it bridges is kind of goal.
Yeah, it can only be as secure as it can only be as secure as the weakest security of the two chains of the bridge. Because obviously, if Cosmos were to break and have a coin duplication bug or something, then Peggy would of course allow you to send infinite vouchers of those duplicated coins over to Cosmos. And there's no real stopping that.
Does the current Peggy implementation allow you to move a Cosmos native asset to Ethereum?
Not yet. That is something that Jahan will be working on for Peggy V2.
Yeah, we'll be working on that in January, and so that'll be great. We call that internally. We call that the atoms on Uniswap use case because that's what it would allow.
Do y'all want to talk a little bit about the testnet on Friday?
Yeah, good. Thank you for the prompt, Deborah. So on Friday we'll be having our second Peggy. Well, we had Broken Net first, and this is going to be a test net because things are actually intended to work. Anyways, so how we'll be organizing our Peggy testnet is pretty similar to the Broken Net 1 format, which is that for ease of bootstrapping, we're just going to get everybody in a single Zoom call and just work together to launch the chain. Now, unlike the original Broken Net, we will be continuing testing beyond beyond just launching the chain during that call. The call is time limited to 4 hours, so it's pretty reasonable for people to show up, and it's plenty long to get a chain bootstrapped. But in this case, for our second testnet, we will be trying to keep the chain running for at least a week following, um, and do a lot more stuff. For example, challenge people to spam the bridge with transactions, and otherwise generally see what they can't do to break Peggy. Um, Now we'll be bridging to the Rinkeby Ethereum testnet. So if you want to try and get yourself some Ethereum, some test ETH, deploy some ERC20 contracts that you think can cause problems, or stuff like that. That will be appreciated. And I'm going to be writing a few little modules that we're going to use in our integration tests for Peggy, but also for the testnet to spam transactions. For example, deploy 20 different ERC20 contracts and then spam a few hundred transactions of each type into the chain, into the testnet chain.
Sounds pretty fun.
Yes, hopefully everything keeps working. What we're really looking for here are long-term operational issues with the validator set. I would say the most important test we're going to do during this whole testnet is to have validators drop in and drop out in the most random and complicated way we can see, and see if that breaks anything with the validator set update process. Because the nice thing about the Peggy design is that as long as validator set updates work, the money in the bridge is safe. And we just have to make sure that that can survive some really weird validator state power changes.
Okay, I'm going to drop the Discord link into the chat here. So if anybody would like to follow up on testnet or get invited to the testnet Zoom, please jump into that Discord and let me know.
Mm-hmm. And Deborah, let me see. I thought you said something. First.
I think we should use vouchers in the bridge, because that way, instead of real money, because that way you could have multiple attacks demonstrated, and then they could split the pot at the end of it,
Yeah.
versus the first person who attacks it taking everything. But that's a
Yes.
matter for deeper discussion, I guess.
Yes, it is a
Also,
matter
John-
for discussion.
Jahan had some great ideas, I think, also about how you could participate as a relayer in the, if you weren't a validator. You want to kind of shed a little light on that, Jahan? Talk about that. I thought that was a great idea.
Oh, well, I think that it's good to have people acting as relayers, not as validators. It's kind of been a pet peeve of mine, maybe, is the blurring of the roles between relayers and like Cosmos validators. And in small chains, certainly Cosmos validators will be also doing relaying as well. But in a highly used chain, it's most likely actually going to be Ethereum miners who are going to be relayers, because they can get stuff into Ethereum blocks quickly. So that's why I was just thinking, for test nets and stuff, we could test the relayer role as a separate role, just to get us used to that reality. Like
Yeah.
for our test net on Friday, maybe I'll just run a relayer. I won't run a validator at all.
We do have just straight up relayer binaries. Oh yeah, that's something else. For the testnet on Friday, I will be pre-building binaries for the like relayers and e-signers, etc. And they will be an official release on the on the Cosmos Peggy GitHub so that people don't have to go building them themselves. So yeah, look forward to that. That is also something else we're doing that's new in this testnet.
Gonna be fun.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
So I think that's everything for today. If anybody has any more questions at all, are we currently using IBC on the Cosmos side? So another question. No, we are not currently using or testing with IBC, but the chain is now IBC capable. Is that right, Jack? You're the expert here.
Yeah, so we're using the exact same IBC code that Gaia uses. So we are as IBC compatible and capable as any Cosmos chain at this point.
Yes, we just have not tested Peggy IBC interactions thoroughly yet, and we don't plan on doing that in this testnet on Friday. Peggy plus IBC will be tested a little bit later, probably in our next testnet, or perhaps even in the incentivized testnet.
Also, just in case people are wondering from a high level, the kind of relationship between IBC and Peggy, one might ask, well, why isn't Peggy just receiving IBC packets? And the reason is that it would cost way too much gas on Ethereum to handle the entire IBC protocol. So Peggy is like a very cut down version, sort of, you can think of it that way.
Yeah, I don't know. I think an Ethereum contract that implemented all of IBC might be too expensive to deploy in one block. In January, yes, that is actually a very achievable goal. In fact, if you want, you can start testing Peggy plus IBC today using Peggy Master. It's just not something we are pursuing for the testnet on Friday. So if you want to talk about that or work with us on that, you can join the Discord link that Deborah posted, and you can also join the Peggy channel on the Cosmos Discord and try and coordinate with us, and we will help you open pull requests and take a look at what code you need to modify, or generally just set up your own little testnet to see what's broken in the first place. Because if Peggy plus IBC is your priority, then what remains to be done there is essentially testing and minor bug fixing. So you're not waiting on anything from us. It just needs somebody to look at it and brush the cobwebs off. Cool. Yeah. So, like I was saying, if anybody has any more questions or wants to help work on Peggy, just show up in the Althea Validators Althea Discord, or the Cosmos, or the Peggy channel in the Cosmos Discord. Do remember, when you join, you have to go to the there's like introductions or something channel. I forget what it's called, but you're gonna have to find the right emoji to click on to get access to the Peggy channel. So it's a bit of a process, but it's not too hard. And once you're there, feel free to ask any questions, and we'll be happy to help you out. So yeah, that's everything for today. Thank you everybody for showing up, and I look forward to our testnet this Friday.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.